Welcome to episode number 685 of this here electronic engineering podcast called Amelia's Weekly Fish Fry, brought to you by eejournal.com and written, produced, and hosted by yours truly, Amelia Dalton. Let's go to space. One of my absolute favorite topics to cover here on Fish Fry. And this week we're diving into the cutting edge of AI and space with Pratish Shah of Aitech. We're talking all about Aitech's IQSat, the world's first AI-enabled picosatellite constellation platform, and how the shift to AI and space computing is changing the economics and timeline for collecting and analyzing data beyond Earth. We also cover the immense challenges of integrating high-performance AI into a harsh environment, the emerging capabilities from constellations like IQSat, and Aitech's essential role in NASA's Artemis 2 mission. So, without further ado, please welcome Pratish to Fish Fry. Hi, Pratish. Thank you so much for joining me.
Good morning. Pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Absolutely. Okay, so we are talking all about space today. But first, Aitech's IQSat is the world's first AI-enabled picosatellite constellation platform. So talk to me about the most significant immediate ramifications of deploying AI directly onto small satellite constellations, particularly compared to traditional ground-based data processing.
Oh, sure. No, good question. AI is a buzzword I know that's used many times in many ways. The benefit of doing AI at the orbital edge, AI in space, is about processing data to generate relevant information. And the more you can do directly at the point of capture, as in this case with IQSat, and process it into something that is relevant and then deliver that to the organizations or individuals that need it, speeds up the sensor to action loop by minimizing to almost avoiding ground-based processing. I am speeding up that whole operation. So with AI Tech's IQSat, we're able to do that AI inference processing directly in space. Take, in this case, let's say imagery data and identify and assess what the AI model wants it to do, uh, convert that into some level of intelligence or information based on that AI processing, and we then relay just the information to the organization or individual. I don't send megabytes or gigabytes of imagery. I only send kilobytes of information. So speed things up. You minimize the uplink and downlink data needs, since they are usually the most uh, restricted, and get the information to the user or organization much faster.
Okay, so Pratish, how does AI Tech's IQSat and the general move toward AI and space computing, like NVIDIA's recent announcement, fundamentally change the economics and timeline for collecting and analyzing space-based data?
Oh, yes. NVIDIA, IQSat, all these tools, all this capability, everything revolves around data and information. NVIDIA's continued push in accelerating and growing the AI capabilities, whether it's terrestrial based or even space based, allows products like IQSat and other types of AI tools to make sense of all this data that's collected, processed through NVIDIA's capabilities to create models in a rapid way, and then allow products like IQSat to process those models to convert that to information. So NVIDIA's continued support in growing the ability to do generative AI work, to be able to take the intense amounts of data and content that exists all around us and make that applicable through models that it creates, and then us being able to use those models created by NVIDIA based architecture allows us to make AI in space very real, very fast, and very efficient.
So, Pratish, looking at both AI Tech's platform and NVIDIA's space computing announcement, what are the key challenges we must still overcome to fully integrate high performance AI processing in such a harsh environment?
Yes, space is not easy. There's no doubt about that. Though I know as space has grown, it seems like it's just very easy to get stuff there and just have it operate and work. Whether it's NVIDIA, whether it's IQSat, or whether it's any of the other offerings that we have to put up in space to be able to do computing and connectivity. First things first, you have to go deal with radiation to be able to mitigate and recover from any impact of radiation. Radiation affects all electronics in space, and how you protect against it or how you recover from any radiation induced upset is a key part of having any type of electronics in space. So that's one area that we have to go solve. The other challenge you have in space is also power. We don't have big power plants, like we do on Earth to generate, gigawatts and megawatts of power. So the amount of power you consume in space is limited by the amount of power you can generate in space. And that's usually through solar panels. And solar panels, you don't generate, megawatts and gigawatts of power, you generate watts of power. So you have to produce electronics and to be able to do whatever processing and communication and connectivity with a very tight power budget and do that efficiently. So that's another problem you have to solve. One of the side effects about power is when you consume power, you also generate heat. And processors, no matter, how big, how small, how fast, how slow, generate heat. And you have to dissipate that heat. So when you do a lot of AI processing, you do generate a lot of heat. And therefore, how do you disperse heat? Well, in space, you have no air. You can't fan cool a CPU or a GPU. So you have to find other creative means to be able to cool the processor in order to be able to get the maximum performance out of that. So, between radiation, between the availability of power, and as well as thermal dissipation, those are universal problems of any types of electronics, any CPU, any GPU, any networking that you put into space that has to get solved and overcome in order to have a viable space-based ecosystem.
Okay, so beyond the technical advantages, what other capabilities might emerge from AI-enabled satellite constellations like IQSat?
I think constellations like IQSat and AI-enabled capabilities in space open up a whole lot of new markets and uses. One of the things we like to say is every company is a space company. They just don't know it yet, in a sense. So the most obvious thing that people come to is like, hey, I can go look at the Earth and I can go get pictures and I can see where the clouds are and maybe where the ships are. That's a very obvious use in space. But looking at pictures and that is interesting, but how do you make sense of those pictures and what can you do with those pictures? One example of this, using AI enabled capability is, you know, I'm tracking a truck. I have goods across trucks traveling across the country, and taking a picture of my truck from space on a road is cool looking. But what's more cool looking is if I was able to do AI processing to be able to, track the goods, the millions and millions of dollars of goods that I have transporting around the country. And then all of a sudden, as I'm tracking it, the AI capabilities of IQSat identifies an anomaly. A truck, suddenly may have stopped at a location it does not, or it deviates, from the road that it's on. that anomaly is more interesting versus the picture of the truck. So AI-enabled capabilities in space identify some things like that are not normal, and that is a trigger I may want to get as a trucking company or as a goods company. Like, okay, something is not ordinary from a certain object, a certain truck I have. And that makes a company like that a space-enabled company because now I'm leveraging a space-based asset to help secure the goods I have that are being transported continuously worldwide and be able to identify something that may be incorrect or anomalous and get notified instantly of that so I can actually then go figure out what to do. So I don't need to just look at nice pictures. I can actually get relevant information, whether you're a trucking company or shipping company, or being able to even track in local municipalities like a school bus. School bus follows a continuous normal route, but if the school bus strays off that normal route, I want to know it. So, local agencies and uses grow quite a bit by enabling AI in space and by converting what's data into actionable information opens up the market in dramatic ways.
So let's also talk about the Artemis 2 as well. So AI tech has a part in NASA's Artemis 2 launch, right? So first, what role does AI tech's media converter play in Orion's data infrastructure?
Oh no, yeah, Artemis most definitely exciting and nothing like seeing humankind go back to the moon. So yes, we do play a role in the Artemis program, specifically in the Orion capsule, and we provide a electronics called a media converter. People think a media converter is like some sort of something that I'm watching, converting from one format to another format. In this case, it is converting formats, but it's converting from optical like networking into copper type networking. So you have different types of networking connectivity. And what the media converter does is provides a means by which the optical infrastructure, when the networking connectivity is done through optical wires, but also needs to connect to the copper, type wires of networking connectivity. And the media converter provides that ability to convert and connect the infrastructure that can be diverse. And we play a big part in that role to be able to connect both types of infrastructure and the connectivity capability of the capsule.
So, Pratish, why is returning to the moon so important now? And how does computing facilitate lunar efforts like the Artemis 2 mission, lunar landers, and other efforts?
So I think there's a handful of reasons why going back to the moon is important, is exciting, and so forth. First, there's no doubt watching humankind's return to the moon after 50 years excites people, unites people everywhere because it is something we see every night, an object in space. And you think about humans, human-made, objects that are orbiting the moon, one just creates a level of excitement from everyone from kids to adults. And that creates interest in the industry and the science and the capabilities that can come. By having greater presence on the moon and the lunar environment, actually allows us to consider and do more in space that may not be possible on Earth. We know from our presence on the space station that we were able to create and invent new things because of the environment of being in orbit and being away from Earth's gravity, as an example. By growing presence on the lunar surface, it continues to create an environment as we grow on the lunar surface to learn new things, to create new things, to invent new drugs and new medications and new materials, things that are not as easy to do within the confines of Earth. And in the end, all these things that get created, from space-based environments does make life for all of us on Earth just that much better. And I think embarking on going to the moon and setting up a more permanent presence in the moon, as NASA has commented, over the years, helps us all out here, many, many ways, and many ways that we probably haven't even figured out how it helps us out.
I couldn't agree more. So, Pratish, moving to LEO or low Earth orbit, how can AI and space computing help with LEO efforts toward future space-based data centers?
Yes, definitely one of those hot topics of everyone wants to put a data center up in space. So there's a couple of benefits by putting data centers in space. One of the areas that benefit by putting these data centers in space, and I mentioned it earlier, is like thermal challenges. Space, especially on the dark side, is pretty cool. And thus being able to leverage the cold side of space and to be able to use natural means to cool very hot running things allows you to do space-based processing or very, very intense AI-based processing in a way that consumes less power. Less power, not from a standpoint of just operating the chip, but less power to try to create an environment in which the processing can take place in a more optimal way. So the ability to keep the hot running chips cool and leverage the cool, or the cold, actually it shouldn't be cool, it's really cold on the other side, in space allows us to be able to build these space-based data centers and be able to operate them in an optimal way without having to spend gobs of energy to try to keep them exceptionally cool.
This is fantastic. All right, Pratish, before I let you go, it's time for your off the cuff question. So, if you could have one meal right now, it doesn't matter if it's across the world, you need a passport to get there, what would you have?
Lobster. I love lobster. Any place I can find lobster, I will have lobster. It's my favorite meal.
I love it. Well, Pratish, I really appreciate you coming on my show. This is one of my favorite topics, so thank you again.
Thank you very much.
If you'd like even more information about this topic, I've included several links on this week's fish frying page on eejournal.com and in the description for this week's YouTube episode as well. Hey, have you checked out EE Journal on social media yet? Well, you should. You can find us at facebook.com/EEJournal. If LinkedIn is more your thing, I dig it. You can follow us or me on LinkedIn. And we are also on Blue Sky Social and Mastodon as well. And we have a YouTube channel, youtube.com/EEJournal. Folks, it is chock full of all kinds of techie videos, including our very popular Chalk Talk webcast series, hosted by me. And of course, you can subscribe to our EE Journal YouTube channel as well. Thank you everyone for tuning in. If you know of any cool new technology or heck you just want to chat, shoot me a line at Amelia, that's AMELIA, at eejournal.com, or post a comment on our forums on EE Journal. For the week of June 5th, 2026, I'm Amelia Dalton, and you've been fried.